How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. I hope everybody had a good Mother's Day weekend. Got to celebrate with your moms or your loved ones and all that good stuff. Everybody's celebrating the life of their moms. This weekend is a movie the very exact opposite of that. And I would say this is one of those sequels where it's definitely been anticipated since the first one came out in 2021, and then it's just had gone through some delays, due to the strikes and, mishaps with production, I think. I'm not sure why this last one was delayed, but neither here nor there. We are talking about one of the biggest video game franchises possible and its adaptation, which is Mortal Kombat 2, starring Karl Urban, Hiroyuki Sanada, and newcomers like Adeline Rudolph, Martin Ford, and so on and so forth. And like I said, this is a direct sequel to the 2021 movie that came out, and definitely brought this franchise back to the big screen. This is a spoiler-free review, by the way. Of course, we don't want to ruin it, so that way you guys can judge this movie for yourselves. Feel free to, show us your support with a thumbs up, just, if you like watching us, you like Mortal Kombat especially. Ring the bell for notifications, and of course, subscribe, just to join in and keep on ranting with us and whatnot. So the first one definitely was the biggest complaint with that one is that there was no sense of tournament whatsoever. That's kind of been the trend with some of animated movies like Scorpion's Revenge was kind of like that, and can't think of any. And then some of the games, honestly, the more I think about it, they haven't really involved a tournament whatsoever. They've just been an ongoing story of epicness and fighting and stuff like that. So this one, we actually finally get some tournament action, which hasn't been seen on the big screen since the very first one from 95, I believe, which is crazy to believe that it's that long. And that's when, Earthrealm is finally going against Outworld to compete for ultimate domination of the universe. And this time, though, Outworld has gotten taken over by Shao Kahn, much like in the video games and whatnot, played by Martin Ford, who, he is just scary as a human being, just massive size, but not as scary as the Mountain, though, and that actor, which I think it's Bjorn something. I can't think of his name at the moment, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, rewatching the first one this week, just anticipating this one, it's definitely not as good as I remember, and I still hate to say, I feel like the first one, the 95 version, is still renowned as the ultimate film for Mortal Kombat. Still, a lot of people still like that one or talk about that one when you bring up the adaptions. But I think this one is definitely going to be up there after this weekend. Bern, what did you think about this one? I know you and I both played Mortal Kombat. I've only gotten into it since Mortal Kombat X.
It must have been 9. The more not the more recent reboot, but I jumped on at MK9. It was just called Mortal Kombat, the one right before X.
I jumped on the one from 2019, which I think is X, or is that 11? I think that's maybe 11. I don't remember.
I'm not good with dates.
Same, dude. There's been too many. But anyways, what did you think about this one? And did you happen to rewatch the first one to kind of jog your memory, or was that one you're just like, no, I'm good. I'll go into this one fresh?
No, I didn't go back and revisit the first one because although, how there were some good elements of that movie, there wasn't really anything there that made me want to rewatch it. I mean, it would strictly be only for maybe the Sub-Zero and Scorpion fight because, I like those two actors and that fight was pretty good, but everything else in the movie was kind of forgettable. I think it fell into a little bit of the trap that, we do see a little bit of with more recent, video game adaptations where they feel a little gun shy, coming into adapting straight up, what people want from the property in their first outing. I mean, even as good as the Sonic movies are, the first movie kind of fell into that trap as well, where it wasn't until the second one where it kind of felt like we were fully embracing this IP and really digging deep into it. And so, for those reasons, I didn't feel the need to go check out the first one again. And, judging from everything we'd seen from the trailers and stuff, how we were going to get, a lot more characters from the games. We were going to get more environments. We were actually going to deal with the tournament of it all. I was like, okay, I'm just going to come into this one and just watch it for what it is. I don't really feel the need to sort of brush up on any sort of history from the last movie. And I really enjoyed myself with this one. I think I agree with what you said earlier about how this one can kind of stand toe to toe with the '95 movie, just for all the reasons that you would want from a Mortal Kombat movie. I felt like as a fan, like again, I came into the franchise with MK9 and then onwards to X11, and then I think it was a few years ago that came out, MK1. Enjoyed all those games and enjoyed playing the stories of all those games. So getting more familiar with the characters as more than just, oh, that guy looks cool. Actually digging deep into the lore. It's given me up to this point an appreciation for the lore and the world building and just what they do with these characters. So to see that this movie sort of, it feels like, drew from that and finally and started to actually acknowledge the things that Mortal Kombat fans like. That was a welcome surprise, because there was a little part of me that was a little bit worried that it was like, are they still gonna kind of like hold back a bit? Are we only gonna get like a couple of scenes at the tournament, and is it gonna be about something else? But no, I mean, this movie did a good job. I think the credit to the director Simon McQuaid and the writers. That they actually embraced, what it seems like fans would want from this, and that's really cool action, cool characters, doing really cool things, and fatalities and gore abound, and I think this movie did a good job of that. I think, in particular, I think making this, like, centralizing the story on not just one character but two characters in Adeline Rudolph's Katana and Carl Urban's Johnny Cage. They have a little bit of a two-hander here, and I thought it was an interesting approach. Where you kind of get sort of the fresh, newcomer lens that I forget his name from the first movie. That he was the sort of central character. He's back here as well.
Cole Young.
Cole Young, yeah, the audience surrogate of that was Cole Young, and this one is replaced by Carl Urban's Johnny Cage, and I think he does a much better job. And I think they give him a little bit more interesting stuff to work with, to sort of give those people who aren't as familiar with this stuff a little bit of an entry point. And for people who are a little bit more in the know of these things, I think Katana was such a really cool character. Adeline Rudolph did that performance really well in terms of physicality and also the dramatic stuff. Yeah, man. What more can I say? I'm really surprised about like how much I just like enjoyed myself watching this movie. And again, after the first movie failed to impress me, I'm very glad that this one, corrected all those things where it's like, okay, yeah, we're actually gonna do the Mortal Kombat thing, and I think they leaned into it, and I think that it served the movie better. And I think that this is finally the Mortal Kombat movie I've been wanting for 21 years, basically. So yeah, I'm very happy with this one.
Well, Bern, I'm glad you finally got the Mortal Kombat movie of your dreams, to a certain extent, of course. Yeah, like I said, just rewatching the first one, I like that it was very much about Scorpion with his conflict with Sub-Zero, but then yeah, it definitely was. It was kind of scared to jump right into it, just because. And you think it with this movie, something massive like Mortal Kombat, that's, I want to say, resurged in popularity because they definitely released more games in succession. Not that I never really paid attention to the Mortal Kombat franchise growing up, because like I said, I only got into it after X, which 11 I think was great. I think that had some of the best excuse me. I think that had some of the best character design as a game. And then Mortal Kombat 1, that was kind of like the reboot of the entire franchise. It wasn't bad. I think some of the story, looking back at it, I was like, could have been better, but again, they're playing around with it. They're trying to, redo that. But movies wise, I like that this definitely felt like the video game finally coming to life, especially with the additions of so many characters. I think Johnny Cage and Katana were the strongest characters, in my opinion, just for this movie. They had the best acting, the best storylines, the best motivations, really. And then we got to see some fan favorites, and like Noob Saibot, who's been somebody when Bihan got announced in the first one, because he's a big deal. Like, he's kind of the one who becomes that. That was awesome to see him in action. Pieruyuki Sanada always kills as Scorpion. And let me see who else. And then we got to see Shao Kahn, reimagined for this one. And it was funny just talking to you guys, you and a couple buddies of ours the other night, and just thinking, like, growing up, I thought Mortal Kombat 1 was okay, and then I thought Annihilation was better. I couldn't be more wrong as an adult, man. And because that one, we got Shao Kahn, we got more characters too. But yeah, just utter garbage compared to the first one. And I'm glad that this one's kind of the opposite, where like this is definitely one of the better sequels compared to the first one. And we also got I like what they did with Baraka too. You know, he felt very much like the Mortal Kombat 11 version. Like I'm not too familiar on all the characters and what they were like before those games, so I don't know if Baraka was just a random creature that just knows how to fight and stuff. I like that this one, him and Johnny Cage had some interesting scenes, and it was great to see some of the old crew back. But there were a couple things I thought, they course corrected a little too much from the first one. I don't want to spoil it. I'm pretty sure it's out there already, but just in regards to a character that a lot of people didn't like from the first one, I thought it was pretty messed up what happened. Again, I'm not going to ruin it for anybody who hasn't seen it or doesn't know about it, but I think this is definitely on track for the next movie going forward. A lot of people, like, I think after this one, a third one's definitely a must, but we'll have to see what the studio and stuff decides. I'm just glad this one didn't really suck compared to the first one as much. Not that the first one I don't think was bad. It just, looking back at it, I was like, it was very just kind of a flat movie for Mortal Kombat. So I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5. I think it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a good movie to kind of get into summer season. So I definitely recommend it if you're looking for a fun movie just to turn your brain off, watch some gnarly fight scenes and deaths, essentially, or fatalities, as you will, and also just have a laugh or two. I think this is definitely a fun movie for you. So yeah, I definitely recommend this one. But yeah, 3 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I mean, you get the really cool, like bone crunching, gory action that you would want from a Mortal Kombat movie. I think most of the fights here are shot pretty well. You get some fun humor from Carl Urban's Johnny Cage and Josh Lawson's Kano, who was the standout, I think, of the first movie and picks up right where he left off in that one. And here, as much as as I didn't really like the casting of Carl Urban when that was initially announced. I feel like by the end of this movie, he kind of brought me around to it. I felt like he was a little bit of a rough start coming in, but by the end of the movie, he really worked for me. Whereas someone like Katana really worked for me from beginning to end. But Carl Urban had to grow on me a little bit. In terms of other things that I didn't really like as much, I felt like the music was a big disappointment for me. I felt like the original score here didn't really punch up any of the action sequences here. It's all like outside of maybe like one or two instances, feels very forgettable to me where I couldn't even like think of like what the songs are playing. And then I feel like in an action movie, you kind of want the music to sort of like support the things that are going on. It's almost like that's kind of like the rhythm of the action and the cadence of the action sequences kind of fall onto like the either the licensed music or the original music. But here that was a huge disappointment to me where you have this really iconic Mortal Kombat theme that everybody knows and loves, and it seems like you refuse to use it at almost any point that it could have like punched up a certain action sequence or provide something new that could have like equally like been as like heart pumping, but didn't really give me any of those. And I thought there were some I think there were some like pretty like weird editing things here and there where it felt like some moments didn't land or like some moments kind of like fell on their face a little bit. Yeah, here and there it felt like Simon McQuaid. I think this is only his like second directorial movie outside of the first one, so I just feel like there's still like some learning for him. So hopefully by the third movie, he'll give it to brush up a lot of those things and make those moments that need that punch. I hope they can land those next time around. Not many here. There was a lot more in the first movie that didn't really like go over so well with me. But in this one, there was only like a few instances, but it was a little bit jarring sometimes. Where I'm like, oh, I feel like that moment should have had a little bit more impact, but it didn't because of the way that it was like edited. So yeah, in terms of those things, those are the stuff that didn't really work for me. But overall, this was a really fun Mortal Kombat movie. Like I said, it's got everything that you would want from a Mortal Kombat movie in terms of the fun characters and the cool action and a lot of really fun nods to the games in terms of like the arenas that they're like fighting in and stuff. So that was really cool, and I enjoyed all those like cool references to the stages that are iconic now at this point. So as a Mortal Kombat fan, definitely the happiest I've been since watching the 95 movie. So, for those reasons, I think I agree with you. I think this one's going to be a 3 out of 5. Don't go in expecting any sort of like incredible movie. This is not particularly like well written like cinema stuff. This is just gives you what you want from a Mortal Kombat movie. Cheesy lines, fun characters, and really cool action. I think it delivered on those fronts.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely the other strongest movie in the franchise aside from the very first one. And honestly, I think the animated ones, particularly Scorpion's Revenge and Snowblind, I think are some of the best stories I've seen on, screen wise. So, yeah, I'm just glad that this one definitely had some improvements. Definitely welcome more, and I'm curious to see what other characters we'll get in the third one or whatever they decide to do. I honestly think with everything going on and Mortal Kombat being so massive, they just should make this a series at this point. But we'll have to see what the studio and everybody decides. So yeah, 3 out of 5 for both me and Byrne. Very fun movie, just something gnarly and funny to watch. So for those of you that happen to watch see it this last weekend, feel free to let us know what you think in the comments. Obviously, no spoilers, please. Don't ruin it for everybody. And as always, everyone, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.